this evening's performance.
Now I feel like I do have to perform. How is everybody?
Good.
Okay. I'm Kevin Kreeger. I've been on City Council for 4 years. An interesting group I'm talking to because there are so many of you that I know so well. And they're already volunteering on the campaign, people I work with all the time. And then there's some people I haven't met before. I was asked to cover just a little bit about myself, some of my background and whatnot, and then I'd just like to go right into whatever you guys want to talk about. You can shout out topics like the town center, or you can transportation, or you can ask very specific questions to me. Anything about stances on things, my background, or anything else. Okay, I hope that's an okay format. 15 minutes, big gong going off. I ran for city council 4 years ago, and I'm running for mayor this time, honestly because I want to give back to the community. And right now, I think that giving back politically is one of the most important things that we need in the country. I have been inspired by being in local politics. It's amazing to represent people, really represent them, really listen, and then go represent them as if you're their voice. And there's some things that are disappointing, things that we all see in politics that are disappointing, that need to be better. I, for a living, because I'm not wealthy enough to be retired, I consult with medical device and pharmaceutical companies. I help them set up their quality assurance programs. That's a way of reducing error, making better product, and complying with federal regulations, like FDA regulations. Right now I'm helping a company named Stryker comply with some new European regulations, so they can consider continue selling their medical devices into Europe. Before I was consulting, I worked my way up from a third shift manufacturing job in one of these medical device companies to kind of senior management positions. I got burned out on going into the office. I got burned out on the hours. I got burned out on the atmosphere. And I decided to step away and work from home and consult, which has been incredible, refreshing, hard. You're always job hunting, but great, especially now that things have stabilized. Before that, I worked my way through school. I worked my way through college. I got a degree in chemistry. I worked my way through mostly as a janitor in Chicago, went to Roosevelt University. At some point, I had enough credits under my belt where I felt like I could apply to this pharmaceutical and medical device company. That's where I started working on manufacturing lines, third shift for just a little bit more minimum wage. And that's what started my career in the pharmaceutical industry. I had what people describe as a rough childhood in many ways. You know, I don't think about it a whole lot. I consider it kind of normal, but I know that not everybody does. A lot of it stemmed from my father. He was an angry alcoholic. He was a very, very angry alcoholic who moved my mom and me and my 4 younger brothers and sisters to the middle of the woods in Michigan, deep north woods. And things went south. Things were bad. It was a bad home. It was an unsafe, scary home. So my mom took us and moved to Mount Pleasant, Michigan. No job, no money. We lived in a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment, 6 of us. It was about 600 square feet. My mom is my single most important inspiration in terms of my drive. Now, who do I work more than anyone for? My kids. But it was watching my mom go through what she did with my dad with 5 kids. And I saw bad stuff. And it was her putting her head down and driving forward, always, always forward. Always knowing what her North Star was and what was right. Always. I think when we think of strong people, we think of people that are always brave and strong. My mom's the strongest person I know, and I've seen her weak. It's when she is so broken down, though, that you see her real strength, because she still knows her North Star. And that's really the crux for my entire value system. So that's a little about me. That's a lot about me. And Andy, how are we doing? 4 minutes, 47 seconds, according to my stopwatch. It gives us about 10 minutes to talk about anything you guys want. So go for it. Shout out topics, ask me questions, or anything else. And if people can't hear the question, I'm going to repeat it.
questions? Becky?
I would like to know how many hours you spend doing city council work, and if, when Mayor Aaron shortened the length of the council sessions, if that shortened the amount of work you do.
Shorten the meetings themselves?
Yeah.
Okay. The question is, how many hours do I put on city council, and when the meetings were shortened, how much did that impact things? It was a group decision to shorten the meetings, so I don't want to just say that only Randy did that. It was a group decision. I put in an average of, I think, 30 to 35 hours a week. When oil and gas was peaking, I mean, right now it's still, one of the most time-consuming issues, honestly, but when it was peaking, it was maybe 65 hours a week. I mean, it was really constant. It was just absolutely constant. It was maybe more, honestly, Becky, it was just, I would not have counted up. It was a job and a half unto itself. But now I would say probably I'm back to about between 30 and 35 average hours a week, I would say. And I get $600 a month, and none of the council members do this for pay. And the council members now will get $800 a month, but this is largely a volunteer position to give back to the community. Go ahead, please.
Kevin, what are the 3 top things you would hope to accomplish during your reign as mayor?
Okay, the 3 top things I would hope to accomplish. I'm going to say work on. Well, I can ask you. To accomplish means something is done. Like you set your mind to something and 6 months later it's done. Or something maybe that's one of my top 3 issues, but I don't know if it will ever be done. For instance, protecting open land, acquiring more, linking our trail systems. That's one of my 3 top issues. I don't know if I can say we're going to just be done with that at some point, like it's accomplished. We do have a goal as a city to set aside 40% of our land as open land. So if we do that, you could call us done. But there's still enhancing the lands and connecting our trail systems and preserving it. So that is one of my top 3 issues. Should I go on like this? Okay. Another one is oil and gas. And we've talked about it so much, I kind of want to talk about new issues, but it is one of the most important things we're dealing with right now. The state just passed a bill, Senate Bill 181, which gives municipalities and counties tremendous local control, with a caveat: you don't get to do anything you want. Okay? You can control oil and gas as long as it's to protect our health, safety, or the environment. So if you say, well, you've got to have wells 10 million miles from Broomfield, you better come up with some data saying 10 million miles is a logical setback. You can't do whatever you want. But as long as you have data to show that it is in the name of health and safety, we now have the control to even regulate oil and gas to the point where minerals stay in the ground. Health and safety clearly trumps everything else now. It's written right into the rule, it's extremely clear. We are now rewriting our regulations for the second time in the last couple years, and this time triggered by 181. And we will not be done before the election. We will estimate maybe be done in February. And then we will have to implement them. And there are other projects coming that we will have to review against our new regulations. It's one of the absolute most important things. And I would say, honestly, another one, fiscal oversight. Our tax dollars need absolutely the best management oversight that we possibly can. And I am not convinced that that's happening now. Okay. Here's a couple of reasons why. The city and county budget, complicated, huge, all kinds of funds, terms people aren't familiar with, accounting terms people haven't heard of. So in corporate America, I managed budgets that were big enough to give me a jumping off point. I knew some basic terms. I know the difference between capital and operating expenses. I know where to start. I at least knew what questions to ask to get me up to speed, as up to speed as I can be. But frankly, not everybody has that skill set or that background. So if somebody handed you a city and a county budget with so many funds and rules and pass-through dollars, where would you even start? If I said, here it is our money being managed well? We can do better by our council members. We're charged with overseeing the tax dollars. I'd like to see a training program, and Devin gets as much credit for this idea as I do, or maybe more, I really don't know. We've been talking about it for a while. I would like to see training for council members. That's a lot more comprehensive and thorough about our revenues and expenses. expenditures and our expense to revenue ratios and other things that are extremely important so people can participate more fully in our annual audits and in our budget review and approvals. I also would like to see a subcommittee of council. We have 10 people plus a mayor. Not everybody has this type of financial expertise in their blood. Some people might want to focus more on HHS or transportation, but there are some people that really want to get into the budget, and I would like to see a small subcommittee of them to do deep dives into the budget to help us really make sure our money is being managed as well as possible. And just to let you know, we have some great staff, and I think our money is being managed well. But a lot of that is the luck of the staff that we have. And I think that we need to give the council members more skills, more training to really oversee the budget in a much more comprehensive way. Can I call someone to me? Okay, please.
Just have a quick question. How do you say you differ from Randy Aaron's? There's a couple of things that separate you from him, how he managed the city.
How he managed things, so I want to do this in a way that talks about me and not necessarily a comparison where I might sound like I'm making myself out to be better than him in certain ways, so let me do this a little carefully. Instead of that, I would like to just come out and talk about some of the things that I think, let me see if this answers your question. I think it's incredibly important that all the council members participate, that we have group decision making. That's the point of a council, is a group. Not 2 or 3 people with multiple votes each or whatever. Group decisions. Some of this training I'm talking about helps lead to that. Even distribution of information is what we need. We need people up to speed, coming to meetings prepared, and we need them to have the freedom to talk about their opinions in a safe environment. We need a diversity of opinions. I'm supporting candidates right now that are not all at the same place on the political spectrum than I am. So I'm registered as a Democrat. Not all Ds are automatically good, and not all Rs are certainly automatically bad. We need a council that is accepting of a diversity of opinions, and even when those opinions are new to the council or different, they're met with conversation and understanding. And we have to have absolutely as many of our meetings recorded, streamed, and in the public. All decisions in the public, except for the very few that are actually allowed to be made in private. I'm sorry.
Has that not been the case previously, currently?
With which part of that?
You said you want all the meetings to be open.
Yes.
Transparency.
Was that not the case?
So with our meetings, officially all voting meetings are all in the public. Not all study sessions and concept reviews were being streamed or recorded. I think now we have auto recording on all of them and video recording on almost all. Decision making has changed in the last 4 years. While all the voting meetings were in the public, and that's where the official vote was, if you go back and look at the votes starting 4 years ago, the percentages have completely changed. It's gone from a model of more discuss in private, debate, vote, hash it out, and then everybody come out and vote unanimously the same way. If it's going to pass, I'll vote for it, even if I don't believe in it, to show a united front. What I miss out in that process is who was on the other side. How many people? Was it a 9-to-1 vote or a 6-to-4 vote? What were their reasons? And which council members? That matters to me. All of it missing. That's a change that we're undergoing right now. The last 4 years have been transformational in this way and other ways. Starting 4 years ago and moving that way more 2 years ago. So, I hope that was answered well. Thank you. Who else? Who's next? I know Ann. Yes, ma'am. Please.
My name is Diana Shaken, and I live in Skystone.
Okay.
So my biggest concern is the Jefferson Parkway.
Yes.
And I would like to know your thoughts on that. I know it's stopped for now because of the soil testing, but I'm concerned.
I'm concerned too. The question is about the Jefferson Parkway. This resident lives in Skystone, which is a community right next to where the parkway would go through. So if you don't know, there's a big push to create a ring around Denver, a highway, like a lot of cities have. Helps move people, helps move goods. It's been shown to be good for transportation in a number of metropolitan areas. Instead of cutting through, you can go around and then cut in. It speeds things up. Controversial in some ways, but this was the idea for many years. Part of it was postponed because Golden didn't want to get on board. They didn't want to stop there. They didn't want an off-ramp. They didn't want the Walmart they thought it would bring. Then things got moving again, and then they halted again because on that same stretch, basically, part of it would overlap with what's now Indiana. And the part of Indiana that borders Rocky Flats. And if you don't know, Rocky Flats was a place where plutonium triggers were made. And a plutonium trigger is a small plutonium bomb. It's a small plutonium explosion that then sets off a bigger explosion. And it was done in the most horrid of ways, with chemicals being dumped straight into the soil, not sealed properly, not recorded properly for years and years and years. So it's a major contaminated site. It was a Superfund site, actually. So part of it is still closed as a Superfund site. Part of it is supposed to be clean enough that we've been approached with the idea of putting in a visitor center and trails, and the highway would tear up part of it and go right down the side of it. So a lot of people came to us and said, wait, how do you know it's so clean? You know, we had CU professors that specialize in radioactive isotopes, we had public health officials, and we had a number of other people coming to us to say, this site is not clean and should not be disturbed. Plutonium goes airborne extraordinarily easily. It's an alpha emitter, which is an alpha particle, is a tiny particle, gets lodged in the lungs, can cause cancer. And it can cause cancer in other ways too. But that's one of the most frequent for an alpha particle. So there was this huge raging debate. No, it's safe. It's safe. You're alarmists. It's safe. We're moving forward. And no, it might not be. You have to be careful. Approach with caution. And after just a bunch of wrestling on this issue, we did get some additional testing funded. And so did some other groups. One of the other groups had a sample come back that was more than 5 times higher than anything on that part of the site should ever be. There is no explanation for how it could be that high. It was a part of the site which would have been disturbed by the construction of the highway that had a reading more than 5 times what the maximum anywhere on that part of the site that they consider clean should be. Thank goodness we're doing some testing. The question now is, what does that mean? How many spots are like that? Is it an anomaly or not? I've got 7 more minutes. Thank you, Kathy.
I think you're over.
Do I have time for one more? So what we have to do is, yes, if we can complete something that will help us down the road, move goods and services, but not at the cost of health. There's no way I'm going to improve something that could potentially be putting radioactive plutonium into the air and then causing a cancer cluster downwind from there. So that's where I stand on that. It's just going to have to be proven to be safe.
And you're going to be around after the meeting, and then people can talk to you a little bit more?
I'm going to be around after the meeting. I have the feeling I'm at my 15-minute mark. What I want to say is thank you for being here. Thank you for participating in local politics. And if I could say, remember that while the big soap opera is in DC, there is nothing that affects your daily life more than local politics. Is that street widened? Does it have potholes? Is our city beautiful? Is it safe? Are we fracking right next to homes and schools? All local decisions. So thank you again. Have a good evening.